January 7, 2021. Place Vendôme, Paris. A blue box sits on a marble table like a sealed future. Pens are uncapped. Flashbulbs stutter. In 10 seconds, a 184-year-old American jeweler will belong to a French empire of leather, glass, and gold. The signing begins, and with it another chapter in a very particular kind of conquest. The patient takeover of time itself, one maison at a time. The lock clicks. Bernard Arnault's legend rarely starts here. It is more useful to begin with the small things people underestimate: bankrupt companies with beautiful names, forgotten ateliers with stubborn craftspeople, initials that still mean something when printed on canvas. He hunts for those pressure points, places where emotion pools around an object, and then builds systems to protect and scale that feeling. Dior will be one of those names, Vuitton another. The trick isn't buying a logo, it's buying the right to define what the logo means next. He is born on March 5, 1949 in Roubaix, a textile town that understands the romance and risk of fabric. By 1971, fresh from engineering school, he joins the family construction firm and starts rearranging furniture, quietly selling the parts that don't grow, doubling down on those that do. The lesson is clinical. Capital is a river, not a lake. He learns to redirect it. He learns, as important, to wait. Later, when a much bigger opportunity washes up, he'll be ready to step in without splashing. Opportunity arrives in 1984. Boussac Saint-Frères, a sprawling, collapsing French conglomerate whose best asset is a sleeping beauty named Christian Dior. The government wants a savior. The market wants a liquidation. Arnault offers both. Revive what matters, shed what doesn't. Factories close, lawsuits fly, and the newspapers invent nicknames. But when the dust settles, Dior stands straighter. The signal goes out to Paris and beyond. He isn't here for a quick flip. He is here to reorganize desire and make it pay reliably. Keep Dior. 2 years later, another fuse catches. In 1987, Moet Hennessy and Louis Vuitton merged to create LVMH, a baroque structure with too many captains and not enough direction. The next 18 months become a lesson in chess. Alliances formed and broken, shares accumulated, boardrooms flipped upside down. On January 13, 1989, Arnault is named chairman and chief executive. If the Boussac episode proved he could rescue a jewel, this proves he can design the crown. He begins to assemble a federation where houses compete creatively and cooperate financially. The 1990s turn into a disciplined spree. Guerlain in 1994 adds a century of fragrance authority. Sephora in 1997 looks like a retail experiment, then becomes a global education system for beauty, teaching millions how to buy luxury without an appointment. A stake in Fendi in 1999 pulls Rome's swagger into the orbit. He doesn't just collect brands, he standardizes excellence. Workshops are upgraded, supply chains tightened, distribution taken back from middlemen. Scarcity isn't a marketing line, it's a manufacturing schedule. If you love deep dives into how power is actually built, like and subscribe. These stories take time to tell well, and your support lets us keep going. The creative dial turns, and the shows become events. In 1996, John Galliano's appointment at Dior reanimates couture as theatre. In 1997, Marc Jacobs gives Louis Vuitton a modern vocabulary, turning a trunk maker into a fashion engine without losing the trunk. The formula reveals itself. Hire audacious talent, wrap them in operational certainty, and turn craft into culture. Mistakes happen, headlines shout. But because the factories hum and the boutiques are disciplined, the system absorbs shock and converts attention into waiting lists. A correction arrives, as they always do. The dot-com wobble, and then the 2008 crisis test, even the well-run. Arnault's answer is the same as it was in Roubaix. Reallocate the river. Push into Asia with respect for local taste. Build flagships that operate like secular cathedrals. Invest in e-commerce before it feels luxurious to shop on a screen. And behind the glass, set standards that almost no one talks about publicly. How leather is tanned, how watches are assembled, how a sales associate learns to listen before speaking. Then come the trophies that also turn into toolkits. In 2011, LVMH takes a majority stake in Bulgari, fusing Roman jewelry savoir-faire with French scale. In 2016, Rimowa brings German aluminum discipline into a world that travels more than it ever has. In 2018, Belmont adds trains and hotels to the idea of the journey, transforming luxury from something you wear into a place you inhabit. Each acquisition slots into a matrix: heritage plus modernization, scarcity plus reach. The group looks less like a portfolio and more like a nervous system. The Tiffany saga sharpens the silhouette. Announced in late 2019 at a headline price that will become a courtroom argument, the deal stalls in pandemic fog, then reopens with a revised number and sharper terms. On January 7, 2021, signatures flow, and the blue box is absorbed without losing its blueness. New creative appointments follow, high jewelry ateliers are renovated, and an American icon learns to speak fluent LVMH. What could have been a trophy becomes a lab for rejuvenation at industrial scale. By 2023, LVMH is not just the largest luxury group. For a time, it is Europe's most valuable company, a sentence that would have read like fiction in 1984. The numbers impress, but the composition is the real achievement. More than 70 houses, each with its own heartbeat, sharing a circulation system that keeps margins healthy and reputations intact. The philanthropy is visible, pledges to culture and restoration, and so are the controversies, because scale brings scrutiny. Arnault responds the way he always has, by moving the pieces and making the results speak. Succession, once a whisper, becomes a plan you can map. In 2020, Frédéric Arnault takes the wheel at Tag Heuer and gives the chronograph a digital pulse. In 2023, Delphine Arnault steps into the top job at Dior, one of the group's most delicate instruments. Antoine steers at the holding company level. Alexandra sharpens jewelry and digital thinking at Tiffany. Jean learns watches from the movement up. It looks less like a dynasty imposed and more like an orchestra rehearsed, a bench built over years, each chair earned with performance. What makes all of this work is a paradox. Luxury is slow, but the business is fast. The bag that sells out in Tokyo today was conceived 24 months ago by a mood board and a hunch. The watch, whose waitlist stretches into winter, must still arrive on time. Arnault designs for that tension. He insists on craftsmen who say no more than they say yes, and marketers who know how to make that no feel like a promise. The houses compete for attention. The accountants compete for predictability. Both usually get what they want. He has rivals, of course, and friendly wars with other groups. He loses sometimes and learns. He overreaches occasionally and retreats. But the pattern holds. Find the undervalued soul of a name, rebuild its bones, and then teach the world to desire the result at exactly the rate you can produce it. The world changes. Streetwear floods the salons. Social media tries to flatten everything, and the response is to collaborate without surrender. Virgil Abloh arrives at Louis Vuitton and proves that street and salon can share a runway without either collapsing. The camera returns to Place Vendôme. The blue box remains blue, the pens are capped now. Outside, tourists angle their phones toward windows that look like stages. Inside those windows, metal becomes symbol, leather becomes signal, glass becomes memory. You can call it a business if you like. Arnault would not disagree. But he has always treated business as a medium like film or architecture, where the raw materials are capital, craft, and time. Arrange them correctly, and you don't just make products, you manufacture meaning. If you want more true stories of how empires are really built, one decision, one workshop, one bold hire at a time, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter.